I believe we are live. It didn't even count me down this time. Hello, everybody. I am Christina Evans with Cascadia Seller Solutions. As many of you know, I handle business development. And also with me tonight is Kelly Johnston. And
Hello.
Emily hath arrived.
The party is starting. Yeah.
Woo! All right, if you two want to introduce yourself real quick and...
Emily, you first.
Sure. I'm the customer's experience consultant here. So I handle all of the things that you need in terms of customer service and messages to customers and marketing and detail pages and things like that.
She's the guru. Don't let her lie. Come on.
I think I have a cold, so if I start...
Oh. No, you sound pretty good. You sound pretty good. If you start coughing, we'll yell. But
I was coughing a bunch about 5 minutes ago, so I think I got it all out of my system.
Well, tis the season, is it not?
Right.
Yes. Well, and I'm Kelly Johnston. I am a former manager of seller performance at Amazon.com. I spent 10 years with the company almost, and almost all of that in seller performance. And so my area of expertise is helping sellers to navigate that lovely labyrinth of policy and performance issues that inevitably everybody deals with. So that's what I do for Cascadia.
Excellent. So just for everybody watching, we have kind of an idea of what we want to go over tonight in regards to rights owner complaints. That seems to be a really big issue right now, but we are taking questions. So if you have any questions, regardless of the topic, feel free to post those questions in the chat. We will answer them as we can. And if for some reason we do not get to your question, we will answer those separately outside of the session. We'll make sure you get your answer. And you can always reach out to us as well via email at info@thinkcascadia.com. So tonight's topic is going to be focused on rights owner complaints. Like I said, Kelly was recently featured in CNBC's investigation about the Samsung Mark Monitor infringement issues that occurred in November, about how Amazon is handling rights owner complaints. Kelly, can you tell us what is a rights owner complaint?
Sure. So intellectual property infringement comes in three flavors: patent infringement, copyright infringement, and trademark. Starting with patent, that's the least common of enforced intellectual property on Amazon. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, at least previously, and I believe this is still in effect, Amazon has tended to require evidence of a court decision that gives the plaintiff a rendering in their favor. And based on discussions I've had with a lot of other sellers, it's not something they see a lot either, and so I don't want to get too involved in discussing that. But know that patent infringement is out there, and if you have questions about whether or not your product could be patent infringing, you definitely want to talk to an attorney. Which brings me to my disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. I'm betting you're not a lawyer either, or you wouldn't be selling on Amazon. Find one you trust that is skilled in this area, because they are extremely, extremely valuable to you and can save you so much heartache. It's that whole, a little bit of prevention. It's worth it, trust me. So the number one thing that I see sellers doing nowadays, even now with the advent of Google and all sorts of other wonderful inventions, is copyright infringement. Copyright infringement is governed by the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, and it covers books, music, video, DVDs, and imagery. And that last one is the big one, because how do you sell your products on Amazon? You use really good imagery, or you steal someone else's, or someone steals yours. None of those things are good. Please don't be the person that steals imagery. I don't want to have to, defend your life to Amazon to get you back on because you've done that. It's super easy to take a well-produced image from a manufacturer or some other source, a competitor. Don't do it. It's not fair to the photographer who took the image. It's not fair to whomever paid them. Spend the time and money to create your own photos. This is a huge theme that you're going to hear us talk about again and again, and we have in past webinars. You are probably, one or more of you listening, have had your images taken and used without permission, and it's been frustrating. Filing a complaint is actually not that hard. You can find the template for a DMCA pretty much anywhere on the internet, and you don't need a lawyer to file it. But there is a caveat. Again, you are not a lawyer. You may wish to engage legal counsel before you act on a suspected infringement, just to cover your bases. That said, if you think you need to file one, you have to have 3 things. It's a declaration of your rights to the image. You need to report where it lives, so whatever the ASIN is, where you are seeing that infringement. And a penalty of perjury statement. That is really important because it says, I take responsibility for this filing. I'm not lying. Everything I represent to Amazon is true. Because if you fail to do that, that can have some consequences. It's just really important that you follow those things fairly closely. Once you've done a DMCA, it's generally pretty simple on Amazon's part to resolve the infringement. They will take down the images and they'll warn the seller or do some other sort of action. You will not see the results of that. So the only thing that you'll know that's happened is the images come down. So you're not going to get any kind of details about what they did or how they did it. So just know that is true. And that's true of any enforcement. But let's shift to the other big one that we see a lot of, and that's trademark infringement. Something I know so many people are having issues with, and that's not just on Amazon, but it's a big deal. So filing an infringement complaint, it's the same in one way as the DMCA, that declaration of rights. You have to show where the infringement is. You have to explain who's doing the infringing and include that penalty of a perjury statement. Those are all the elements that you have to have. And those are the 3 types of infringement that you're likely to see on Amazon.
So it sounds like it's pretty easy to infringe on someone else's intellectual property. Does this cover just private label sellers? Oh,
no. In fact, with regards to the CNBC article that you mentioned, the clients that I was speaking of, they're resellers of Samsung products, and their information that they got from Amazon in their infringement complaint was incorrect. Typically speaking, Amazon is going to tell you such and such party has alleged infringement by you, and they will give you an email address and or phone number to contact that party. Unfortunately, in that case, the sellers that received infringement notifications last November were given the Mark Monitor address. Mark Monitor is a brand infringement protection firm that basically big firms like Samsung can hire to protect their interests. So in that case, because the information that they got was wrong, it was literally impossible to get the rights owner complaint removed, because they weren't talking to the actual rights owner or their designated representative. So because that's a kind of a unique thing, but it happens to resellers. Emily, where do you see that PL sellers, our private label folks, usually get into trouble with trademark?
So a couple of places. First of all, it's super tempting to just take really good content from other places instead of reinventing the wheel. Why don't you just grab this over here? But it's super important to create your own. One example that Kelly gave a little bit earlier was the copyright violations and using someone else's images or content. We use a lot of images in our work with our clients. I do a lot of enhanced marketing content for people and compile a lot of images. And so I use a lot of things that are actually free Creative Commons sites like Flickr. Pixabay is another good one. You can actually pay for memberships if you want access to better photos, like Shutterstock. Getty Images is another good one. They're a little bit pricey, but again, it's the good content that you want, and you want the content that's your own. You want to have created something your own. Another way that you might want to copy somebody, but you really shouldn't, is an insert that they might put in their product, just to explain a little bit more about what it is. Inserts are really cool. They can give you a lot of neat information, background about the product. But again, that is something that somebody wrote, and if you want to imitate it or make something similar, then that's great, and that's what designers are for. And you can just spend a few $100s and show them what you want, and they can create a rendition that's all your own, which is so much better than taking someone else's stuff, And then where copy is concerned, as a writer, I completely understand about writer's block, and there's only so many ways you feel like you can say something. That's why the sources are really good. I've also started using a tool that we use for keyword research, but Merchant Words is an excellent way to come up with new ways to say things that are actually search terms that people are using. So that's kind of cool too. You can put words that other people are using and see what pops up and see what goes. And maybe you can actually change it that way too.
Yeah.
Which is really great. And again, it becomes your own. And so, you know, like to have this, an insert that you want to copy or an ad that you want to copy or something, like that's, as they say, the best form of flattery. Like that's a wonderful thing. Who wants something of this caliber? You know, that's really great. But if you're exactly copying something, it's just going to hurt you in the long run. You could get your account suspended. There's a ton of other things that could happen, but then also just the learning that goes into it, the creative struggle that goes into it, the special mark that is only you that goes into it won't be there if you just copy from someone else.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up keywords, because that is one area I have seen sellers suspended for trademark violations in the past, is using trademark keywords. So if you're a reseller for Samsung, please don't put Apple in your keywords.
Yeah, it's really rude. And if you think about it from a customer perspective, you know, let's say that I'm searching for an Apple product, and I get a whole bunch of results from people who aren't Apple, but who are either imitators or just, again, trying to get that traffic. And I didn't want that. I wanted Apple. I searched for Apple, and I'm getting all these other results. So you might think that you're driving great traffic to your listing, but if I search for Apple and I get your listing, I'm kind of annoyed with that.
Oh yeah, definitely a huge frustration.
So that's the other area that I see clients getting into issues a lot, is with the trademarks. And you know, brand registry in Amazon used to require only professional looking box, product, logo stamped on there, all good and ready to go. But recently they have started asking for trademark registration paperwork. And so another way that you can protect yourself and sort of, you know, keep out of the fray is if you've got this really great brand name, like this project that we worked on many moons ago. Someone had the idea to call a diaper product Cuddle Buns, which is a super cute name. And it's a great name.
Too adorable.
But unfortunately, it was already thought of. Somebody had already taken Cuddle Buns. But it's so much better to know that before you created a logo and stamped it all over everything, and then you come to find, you know, Cuddle Buns comes and gets you later and says, nope, that's our, those are our buns. You can't, just don't do that. Hire an IP attorney, have somebody actually look at it, and you know, again, there's the attorney thing. Make sure that somebody who's qualified to tell you if it's legal to use the word that you want to use. Make sure somebody qualified tells you that, for sure.
It's more financially responsible as well, because you've put all that time and effort into developing essentially the beginning to your brand, and not even realizing that you're not going to be able to build your brand around that. So you've basically wasted money on logos or advertising or design, something to build your brand, and you've wasted all that money because you can't use any of it.
Right.
Actually,
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think that's the number one thing that I end up counseling a lot of sellers on, is that if you really believe in your product and you have a good foundation with that, spend the time and money to do all of your protections, copyright, trademark, whatever is applicable, patent if it's applicable, and make sure that you have a recognizable mark and logo and all of that. But make sure it's not infringing against somebody else's, because how frustrating would it be to start all over after you've gotten to the, you know, to the peak of everything and to find out that it's all infringing.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually had a question, Emily, you can probably answer. What kind of examples do you have for inserts? I keep hearing about inserts or emailing good content to customers, but I'm having a really hard time coming up with an idea.
Okay, so like you have created the most adorable set of stoneware dishes, and they're special. They're for, I don't know, your daughter's tea party. And so they're actually replicas of the Queen's tea set, or, you know, and then you can make an insert that's like, here's the history of the Queen's tea set. You're buying a little replica of this. Or, you know, another thing people do is, you know, again, with stoneware, kitchen type stuff, put a recipe card in there. So like if you're creating these really fancy Asian bowls or something beautiful, like what noodle things can I put in there?
Noodle things. Is that a technical term? So
when the cold comes on, the eloquence goes out, and that's we're not talking noodles and cuddle buns tonight.
That's the best conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally welcome. So what else? I have bought jewelry before that has a little card in there. Actually, I received a beautiful gift from my mother last year, and I'm Irish, so it's a little Irish cross, and it's an emerald green stone, and it's got all these different components. And so that had a little insert that just says, like, you are the recipient of this beautiful gift. Here's what the green means. Here's what this type of cross means. All of these different things. So yeah, when I am trying to help people sort of set themselves apart from other products and other brands, that is a really good way to do that. It's like a little special gift for the person who just bought the thing. You know, we're so excited you bought this thing. Here's the things you can do with the thing. And so, yeah, that's.
I like that. I got something with jewelry one time that was basically like a care guide, and it kind of covered a gamut of. I mean, I only ordered a specific piece of jewelry, but the store that I purchased it from on Amazon sells all different types of jewelry. And so the kind of the care guide, it actually didn't come with the product itself. It came as a an after email. Hey, thanks for buying our stuff. We hope you like it. Leave us a review, and here's a guide on how to care for if you bought silver or if you bought diamond or if you bought this, that, or the other, which I really liked because, and then I had it for the next time. If I was to purchase something either from that seller or from somebody else, I'd have a general idea of how to care for any specific type of jewelry that I would get that I wouldn't have necessarily known because jewelry is not my thing. That's not my specialty.
Yeah, another example of an insert actually might not be a paper insert with printing on it at all, but one of my favorite jewelry stores here in town has little cloths to clean your silver jewelry, and they have our logo on them. You know, you can include something that is low cost that would help you maintain the actual product you're selling. An insert doesn't have to be a paper thing, although that is a super easy way to create additional value. It could even be a PDF attachment, I think you were basically saying that, the jewelry care guide. And one of our favorite example follow-up emails when we coach clients on how to get more feedback and how to really wow customers. We have a couple of examples in there where they send like big long PDFs that talk about all the different art projects you can do with the thing you just bought. And you know, like it takes a while to put together that big PDF, but then once it's together, every one of your customers can get that, and every one of your customers can feel like it's super important to you.
Absolutely. Not to change the subject, but to get back to the rights owner, it sounds like there are two different ways to get into trouble on Amazon with rights owner issues. Firstly, being a reseller and being accused of selling an item that violates intellectual property, and then being a private label seller and actually violating IP.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair characterization, although you could be accused of violating it and not be as a PL seller as well. That does happen. But it can cut both ways. But I think the biggest and most disturbing trend that I saw in the latter half of 2016 was a really laser-like focus from large companies that were using the infringement system Amazon has put into place to enforce distribution rights, which is not infringement. Amazon even says on their infringement form that you can use to file a complaint that they do not enforce what they call selective distribution or authorized distribution, which basically means if, let's say I'm Samsung and I want to have this very neat and tidy supply chain of people that I permit to resell my product, but somebody else has got it from somebody else's cousin's brother, and it's a legit product, but they didn't get it from my neat little tidy system that I designed. Well, now I'm mad, and I'm going to file a complaint and say that you're infringing, when in reality it's that. So it's ugly. I don't enjoy seeing these things happen. Again, this is where having an attorney on your side is important, and having the ability to dispute is important. And Amazon has recognized that there some issues with this, they created the notice dispute at Amazon.com queue, which you can basically say, hey, whoa, this infringement complaint is not correct. That's a hugely important step for sellers. It's a very positive step. They've also added some authentication steps to the infringement form so that you can't just put in a nonsense email and nonsense information and file a complaint against somebody and have it processed. You actually have to have access to the email that you're using to file it. So ostensibly that should help cut down on some people abusing the form.
So as a family member, as an example, I don't do this, but just thinking of other
I like how you're like, I don't do this.
situational things that have come across our table with Cascadia Seller Solutions. I couldn't, if I had a family member or a friend that was a seller, I couldn't, if they were like, hey, I think somebody's doing this, or I couldn't go into Amazon and virtually go to Amazon and make a complaint and say somebody's infringing on somebody's rights and just make kind of a bogus claim. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. And that's what I was talking about a little bit with that authentication of the form. Previously, people could do that. You could basically put in a valid email address and just enough information to make a convincing infringement complaint, even including the penalty of perjury statement. As long as you submitted it and it was a valid email where they could send a response, they would look at the infringement complaint and potentially process it. Prior to the form existing, it was even more common for that to happen. But yeah, now you would basically be turned away. They would say you don't have enough information because, like we were talking about earlier, Emily mentioned the brand registry. The form specifically requests if you have a trademark number or other legal, paperwork that explains your copyright or trademark to include it. So they are looking for that more and more, and honestly, more and more companies are able to provide it. So this is doubly important for people who are considering creating their own brand or are creating or working with an established brand. Make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing and that you're protected. Having that IP attorney can be a really huge boon, even if you don't end up using them immediately.
Got it. Kelly, we do have a question.
Sure.
It says they took a private label course and said that if I offered a warranty, anyone who sold my product without my warranty would be infringing on my intellectual property and I can report them.
No, I don't believe that's correct because a warranty isn't necessarily part of the IP. Now, I am not a lawyer, and this is not an area that I'm extremely well versed in. It's not something that I came across consistently at Amazon. The person that is offering your product, if they are unable to offer your warranty, would be in violation of offering a materially different product, potentially. Amazon might enforce it that way, but I don't believe that they would actually consider that a rights infringement. But again, I'm not a lawyer. That would be something I would pose to an appropriately educated source to determine before I would attempt to pursue it. Keep in mind too, if someone is offering your product and you have suspicions that it's infringing, counterfeit, something, you can reach out to them via Amazon system and ask them what they're doing and, to explain themselves effectively. And sometimes you'll actually have a dialogue that's productive. Don't count on it, but it's worth a try before you actually go to the nuclear option and go with an attorney.
Excellent. So in a perfect world, how would a seller manage rights issues on Amazon?
Oh, well, well, all right. So in a perfect world, I feel like a movie trailer is supposed to be playing in a perfect world. Well, so all e-commerce platforms are created with the premise that the users who use them are responsible for the content that they put on them. And Amazon is no different. However, they are uniquely annoying and uniquely Amazonian in their request that you do a test buy. What is a test buy? That is how you protect yourself on Amazon, my friends. It is a pain in the butt. It is a cost and time-intensive process, potentially, for you. So let's say, Christina, you're selling, I don't know, nasal spray. Christina's nasal spray. Sorry, it's the closest thing at hand. You're selling your own version of your nasal spray, and a seller is listing against your ASIN, and you've created this, you formulated it, you had it tested, it is your product. And you're like, where in the heck did they get this from? Because you're getting it directly from your manufacturer. You're not distributing, you're not doing wholesale. You would probably need to do a test buy in order to prove that this product really isn't yours. Why is that important? Because Amazon is a digital platform. They are not handling your merchandise. And don't even start on FBA, people, because I know what you're thinking. Set that aside for a minute. Amazon's enforcement arms cannot handle your product. They can't see what this person is listing. So the only way that you can determine whether or not the product is different, infringing, counterfeit, not real, vapor, whatever, you have to do a test buy. And it's not fun. It takes time and it costs money. This is a cost of business that Amazon expects you to shoulder, because you, my seller friends, you have to defend your own trademark and your own copyright, because it's not Amazon's job to do that. Their job is to obey legitimate legal forms that say such and such party on your platform is violating the rules, you need to act. That's the extent of their responsibility. And that may not be an awesome thing to hear, but it's the truth. So,
is it a whole other bag of worms to inquire if my nasal spray, if I do a test buy and the person selling,
yes,
listing, purchase it from me, basically drop shipping it from me to them, then to me, so
right.
I get my product. Is there a way around that? Like, at that point, I can't refute it. It is, in fact, my product.
Yeah,
because they bought it from me.
Awfully complicated way to fulfill a test buy, although I suppose it's possible. The more likely scenario is that they would cancel the order because they don't actually have your product. Now, if you actually successfully completed a test order, forget somebody doing something weird. Those are great shenanigans, but don't give people ideas.
We've had a few come across my desk. So.
Yes, I know. But let's say you legitimately order the item and the seller fulfills it however they fulfill it, FBA or MFM, and you get the product. Okay, now you've got a successful test buy, but what do you actually have in your hands? So again, if this were Christina's nasal spray, I'm sorry. It's the only thing I had. You it would have your branding. It would have your mark. It would have all that stuff on it that would say it's yours, right? What if you get one that says, oh, Equate, that's not you, but that's not infringing. That means that the person basically what we call piggybacked on your listing to use it because it's prominent and it's well liked. Maybe it's priced well. So what that is materially different. That is not infringing. Now, if I got that same bottle and it had Christina spelled with a K or an X and had the wrong color, but used your logo and all that kind of stuff, you can reasonably deduce that that person is trying to use your trademark and your logo and colors and so on, your brand cachet, if you will. They're trying to use that trademark for their own good and make money off of your stuff. That would be infringing. Those are the two scenarios that you generally are going to have when you get that. So now I know that the whole thing can happen with drop shipping. I don't even really want to get into that. I think that's a whole other conversation to have at some point, but oh my gosh, talk about a lot of effort and talk about creative use of the system. This is why Amazon doesn't like drop shipping, you guys. Seriously. This is an abuse of the system. People should not be doing that.
Okay. I agree.
We can go into more detail. There's more to talk about on the test buy angle, but I really want to move on to other things because there's a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Emily.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that there's a lot of steps, and I'd be happy to kind of follow up on that because I think that this is a very dense topic. But let's go on to other things and see where we go. And Emily, I know that you've done some support for folks that have done test buys, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, and actually that's what I was going to ask you about. So the last time I supported somebody doing this, they received a response back from Amazon UK, even though the response was for the US, and the seller that they complained about is still up on the website, and it seemed like the whole thing didn't even work. So I guess I have seen it work too, but my question is why would people want to spend the money to go through the process when it may be totally pointless and not worth it?
That's a great question. And this is the frustration that all you sellers out there listening feel. I know this. I know it. I know it intimately from when I was at Amazon and now. So trust me when I say that they're not pointless, although that whole fiasco, which I totally remember, was bad. That should not have happened. So from what I have been able to gather, reading the tea leaves on the outside, it seems that Amazon is randomly making some brands gated and some brands not gated. And for the purpose of definition, gating means instead of somebody being able to randomly list against Christina's nose spray, they can no longer do that. Basically, it's restricted to that seller, which is a kind of a big thing. Now, one thing that is in common in this whole discussion that everyone we've talked to who has had their brand gated has been brand registered. But there's not anything in particular that distinguishes those who are gated and those who aren't. I mean, you can't see it. I read a blog post a couple weeks ago, I think, about a lawyer who claimed to be able to get clients brand gated, but I seriously doubt that's possible. And based on my reading of her method, I think that she's found a creative way to exploit the system in a way. She's doing something that works, but it's not truly brand gating. What I think is happening is, again, based on my experience, is that the rate of test buys and complaints that come in as a total proportion of sales for an item, along with other factors like returns and negative feedback and reviews, which we know are a huge thing, those are driving gating decisions. I think Amazon is really taking a holistic numbers view of smaller brands finally and saying, hey, this is what's happening and we really should be taking action. Now, this is speculation. I don't have any pipeline to the Amazon gods to tell me this stuff, but it's based on just the observations that we're seeing. Would I like to see this happen a little more broadly? Yes, I have a lot of clients that would love to see it, but those test buys are, I'm convinced they're driving some of these actions. So why should I do it? Why should I do it? Well, Christina's nose spray, you want to be relevant in your category. You want to be popular. You want to have the buy box. You want to be the #1 seller and all that stuff. Protect your brand. You get to write off the test buys. I know it's a hassle, but I'm convinced that the data points, the more complaints that are filed against these sellers that you are finding on your listings, actually is translating into action. It's not as fast as you want. Right. Believe me, it's not as fast as you want. It's not as fast as we want. But that seems to be where that data goes and how it's being used. So they're not pointless. They just seem that way. What was that?
Like the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right. I mean, think about it like this. And this is semi-related, but many of you probably have known that there used to be a way for you to report a violation on the Amazon website, and it was the reports contact form. Guess what? It's gone. It disappeared probably right around New Year's because it was there prior to the new year, and now it's not. So that was how you would get your squeaky wheel many times before the infringement form even existed. So you could report that stuff there. Now you have to actually do it from within Seller Central, which is fine, but kind of leaves the buyers out in the cold. But that squeaky wheel, wherever it comes from, the infringement form, inside the Seller Central, contact us, whatever you're using, keep making those reports. If you aren't telling Amazon that somebody is violating your product's trademark or copyright or their Amazon policies and rules, you can't guarantee that someone else is making that same report. I hate to use this, but if you see something, say something.
How persistent is too persistent though? Because we've had clients, we've had people who've come to us that were frustrated, and so they were consistently just almost harassing Amazon with this information. What's your advice on that?
Oh, what is it that we like to say, Emily? We call that poking the bear. Yes.
Yes. Don't poke the bear.
Poke. All right. So here's the thing. You would be hard pressed to find yourself enforced against for making legitimate complaints, even if you're making a lot of them. What Amazon does not want is for you to spam them with a bunch of really baseless or incomplete reports that they can't verify, because then you're taking up somebody else's time when they could be knocking a truly bad actor off the platform that's actually harming your category perhaps. Don't make baseless reports because you're mad. Don't retaliate against your competitors because they're being successful. When you find a violation, whatever it is, send it to Amazon, but back it up as much as you can. You know, be specific about the ASIN or ASINs, who's doing it, what they're doing, and why it's a violation. But don't send, you know, retaliatory complaints just because you can. That would get you in trouble far faster than sending a bunch of complaints.
You sort of, thank you. You sort of answered kind of my next question before I even got to it. You said send a complete report. Well, what is a complete report? Is it just the ASIN, or you know, what does a full report entail?
Good question. So the reports contact form just got deprecated, and I've not had a enormous amount of time to investigate the new version, but here's what I did find. Seller Central, the whole seller support department, they run off of a contact us system, basically, you know, different forms that allow you to route concerns to different departments. The new form splits into two, one that is listing based and one that just says violations. And my presumption is that the second one is designed for behavior-based violations, like manipulating reviews, inappropriate contact with other buyers, blah, blah, blah. So for listing-based offenses, which is primarily what we're talking about because we've been focusing on infringement, always the ASIN. Always. You've got to have at least an ASIN, if not more, depending on what you're seeing. Who is doing the violating, and what are they doing? Think about the clearest way that you can say something. Simple, short, and concise is better than a lot of speculation and angry ranting. It just doesn't make it any better, doesn't make it go any faster. So ASIN for sure, who, or if it's multiple people, say these 5 sellers are doing this, and what that violation is. And if necessary, link to the help files and say, here's where it says you can't do X. That's the best way that I can think of to explain it, because if you start putting in a bunch of editorializing and angry ranting, you just look like a troll and you're less likely to get your complaint read.
Well, keep it relevant, because there are human persons on the other end of that email reviewing that email.
Believe it or not, I know everybody out there thinks that they're a bunch of automatons, but I swear they're not. They're people. And they have feelings. Our feelings, we do have them, and they hurt. No, don't be a troll. Just be clear. Clear, concise, short. It makes it a lot easier, and you are not going to see as many things kind of just linger, because if your complaints are clear, they're a lot easier to act on.
So essentially, as with DMCAs, as long as the required pieces are in place, you generally can expect a swift resolution.
Whether it's DMCA, a trademark allegation, if your stuff is clear, or just a general report about whatever type of violation, all three, if they're clear, they're concise, and they're specific where they point to identity and location, you are probably going to see resolution within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the volumes that they're receiving and whether or not there's some other complicating factor that could cause them to have to do more investigation. And again, you will not receive any kind of, hey, this is what we did and why. They don't do that. They will probably acknowledge that they have taken your report, but that's about it. Okay.
I think that about sums IP infringement and rights owner complaints up.
No.
30, 40-minute walnut.
Well, yes, we've touched on a lot of important things. I think we covered a lot of ground. There's more to cover, and if people have questions about the test buy process and they want to talk to us, like Christina said, info@thinkcascadia.com. Please, we will be happily answer those questions. But the bottom line is protect yourself. Know your rights. Know your limits. Protect yourself.
Absolutely. We will be here again next week. Same time, same URL. We hope to see you here. Bring your questions. If you think of anything in the meantime, info@thinkcascadia.com. You can visit our website, www.thinkcascadia.com, or you can call us at 206-202-0222. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.